147a, about 11 lines from the top. Amar Rabbi Zera. So we've been talking about Matna Shchiv Meira, where there's a unique situation where you can affect the transfer of property without a proper kinyan, and that is if the owner is a Shchiv Meira, is on his deathbed. So allowances are made, and he can verbally transfer property. Amar Rabbi Zera says, "Minayin l'man Shchiv Meira shemin Torah." How do we know what's a biblical source for this exception? Shnamar, Torah says, "V'avartem es nachal aso levito." Person has no sons, then you shall transfer his inheritance to his daughter. So yesh lecha havar acheres shehikazu. So by the extra word v'havartem, I'm not sure what word you would use instead. Maybe unasatem, I don't know, but from the word v'havartem, you shall transfer it, means that there's some other kind of transfer. Again, I don't really see how how you get that. But somehow this word v'havartem implies that there's some other situation where you can transfer property. Vezo, and in other words, an exceptional situation where you can transfer property. And what is that situation? Zuma l'shchiv meira, that is the deathbed. Rav Nachman and Rabbi Baravua Me'achar. Rav Nachman has a different source. You shall give his inheritance to his brothers. So that's if he has no daughters, no children at all. You give the inheritance to the brothers. So here, the extra word is nesatem. You could just say nachal. His inheritance goes to his brothers. When you say you give the nachla to his brothers, we're including something additional. A way to transfer inheritance. Vezu. That's the sickbed, deathbed bequest. So why we have these two sources? Why does one not accept the other? Why does Rav Nachman not accept the source Vavartem? Uses that for something else. Look at the Rabbi. Look at the Rabbi. The Tanya, Rabbi Omer, all of the psukim that discuss inheritance, everything it always says unasatem, you shall give it, right? But here, in this case where you transfer the inheritance to the daughter, if there are no sons, uses a different verb, havara, transferring. Ein lecha shemavir nachla mishevet l'shevet elabas, which teaches you that that there's something unique about giving an inheritance to a daughter, and that is that it can change. It can go to a different shevet, because if she marries somebody from a different shevet, then her husband inherits her, and so that causes property to transfer from one shevet to another. Oh no, even if it's not her husband, but her son also would inherit her under normal circumstances, and her son, which tribe does he belong to? The father's tribe. So that's what the Ha'avartem teaches us, that this takes this has an aspect, when a daughter inherits, it has the aspect of transfer, in the sense that it can transfer from one shevet to another. Rav Menashe bar Yirmiyah, Rav Menashe is a third source. In those days, Chizkiyahu.
No, the Rabbi Zera, my time though.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. Yeah, Rabbi Zera, my time lower Satem. Why doesn't Rabbi Zera accept the second view? Unasatem is not Chasol Orcha because it's like you put a verb in there. It's not strange. He doesn't think that's extra, right? You wouldn't just say Nachlas You have a verb. Unasatem is Nachlas You shall give the you shall give it to his brother. Stan, if you just joined, we're on 147a. We're about the second wide line. Rav Menashe bar Yirmiyah
He doesn't hold by he doesn't use this for Shkivmara then, right? Zera?
Yeah, that's why he has the pasuk Vahavartem. He holds that Vahavartem is the source, and the second view is Unasatem is the source. And each one has a reason why they don't like the other one's source.
Right.
Rav Menashe bar Yirmiyah Rav Menashe says a third possibility. Where is the source for Matna Shchiv Meira from the Torah? It's actually from Navi, not from the Torah. In those days, Chizkiyahu became mortally ill. Vayomer Elav Yeshayahu ben Amoz Hanavi. Vayomer, and Yeshayahu the prophet came to him and said, Vayomer Elav said to him, Kol Amar Hashem, so says God, Sav Leveischa Kimei Satov Lo Sichya. Instruct your household. In other words, instruct them, give them your posthumous requests. Kimei Satov Lo Sichya, you'll die and not live. Bitzava ba'alma. So the idea that Sav Levescha, give instructions to your household means verbal instructions, right? So whatever happened to Chizkiyahu's presumably property after his death was affected by this verbal instruction. So that teaches us that, and he was on his deathbed, right? That's what the Navi says. He became mortally ill. So this teaches us that there is such a thing as a Matna Shchid Meira. Rabbi Bar Cheskel. Now, of course, this is not a Torah source.
So
So
that's the question I have. When the earlier says Minayim lomdim min Torah, that doesn't mean literally Torah, then, does it? If we're citing the Navi,
right. So
when we say when the Torah, that constitutes a biblical injunction in
right.
many cases, most cases.
Right. So what is probably going on here is we often find that something is rabbinic, but the rabbis modeled it on something from the Torah. So it's not really a Torah thing, but it's called nasmachta, right? It's like a hint at the source, but it's not a true Torah instruction. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, a fourth source, Rabbi Bar Yecheskel Amar Mehacha, V'Achitofel Ra Ki Lo Nasa Sasa. Achitofel saw that his advice was not taken. Vayachavoshes Chachamor, he saddled his donkey. Vayakam Vayelech El Beso El Ira, and he went home. Vayetzav El Beso Vayechanak, and he instructed his household, and he hung himself. He strangled himself. But so again, he how did he command his household? Presumably verbally, and it wouldn't have been mentioned if it weren't effective. So this indicates that verbal instructions are now. This is also a little strange because Achitophel wasn't physically ill. You could maybe say he was mentally ill if he was going to commit suicide, but he didn't first hang himself and then give instructions. He gave instructions. He's perfectly healthy physically, and then he hangs himself. So is that a matna shliv meira? I don't know. So it seems to me kind of a dubious source. On the other hand, he knew that his death was imminent. So the whole point of the matna shliv meira is to keep the person in a good frame of mind. Okay, whatever. We could, there's what to discuss there, but that's the fourth source. Tanaraban, riffing off Achitophel. So I should have mentioned before, Achitophel, he in the rebellion of David's son Avshalom against David Hamelech, Achitophel took Avshalom's side, and he advised Avshalom to, when David Hamelech kind of escaped, he advised that he be pursued right away, and his advice wasn't taken. And he saw that he wasn't being listened to, so he hung himself. So Tanaraban, what was it that he left as a last will for his children? Al tiyu b'machlokas. Don't argue amongst yourselves. Don't rebel against the kingdom of the house of David. In other words, like, don't do what I did because I sided against David HaMelech and I ended up in disgrace. V'yom tov shel atzeres barur ziru chitim. And also, if it's a clear sky on Shavuos, then it's a good time to plant wheat. A good year to plant wheat. Okay, this seems kind of very different kinds of advice. Mar Zutra Amar, Balalitmar. Mar Zutra says not this last piece of advice is plant wheat not if Shavuos is a clear day, but if it's balul, not barur, but balul, meaning a cloudy day. So the opposite, basically. Amar Narada Mishmei Rabbi Yaakov, and they said in Narada in the name of Rabbi Yaakov, Lo Bar Bar Mamish, is when the version that has it as Barur, which we translated as a clear day, doesn't really mean a clear day. Lo Bal Bal Mamish, and cloudy doesn't really mean a cloudy day. Filu Bal Ruach Tzvonos Min Hashavto. Even if it's cloudy, but the real point is if there's a north wind blowing, Zobar, that's considered a clear day. So in other words, Ikar Chaser Min HaSefer, right? The main instruction here is left out. The real thing is if there's a northern wind on Shavuos, that's a good year to plant wheat. Amrle Rabbi Abba Ravashi, so Rav Abba says, Anan ad Rav Yitzchak Dinim Masninala. We rely on what Rav Yitzchak taught. Motzei Yom Tov Achron Shachag, on the night of the after Sukkot, Hakol Sofin LaShan Hamarach. Everybody looks at the smoke coming from the Mizbeach. Not a klape safan if it goes to the north. In other words, the breeze is blowing to the north. Aniyim smechim v'alibatim asevim. The poor people are happy, and the landowners are sad. Because because it's an indication that it'll be a wet year, it'll be a lot of rain, and it'll be humid, and the produce will rot, won't keep well. So that's good for the poor people because the landowners have to have to dump their inventory, right? If they keep their wheat, it's going to rot, so they have to sell it all, and the market will be flooded, the prices will go down. Not a klape daro. Excuse me. If the smoke blows to the south, it's the opposite. The poor people are sad, the landowners are happy. There won't be much rain, and it'll be dry conditions, so the wheat will keep. So there will be shortages, right? If there's not much rain, then not much wheat will grow. So there will be less supply, and so the prices will go up. Not the Klavi Mizrach. What if it blows to the east? Hakol Smechin. Everybody's happy. Presumably, it means that there will be rain, so there will be a lot of crops available. But not that it won't be so humid that the crops will rot. So there will be a reasonable amount of product on the market. Nobody will have to dump. So prices will be normal. So at least there won't be shortages. So everybody's happy. If it blows to the west and everybody's sad, meaning there's not going to be any rain at all, nothing's going to grow, there won't be any wheat to sell, and there won't be any wheat to buy. Raminu. But we have a question on this from another source. Mizrachis li'olam yafa. It's always good to have a wind from the east. Maravis li'olam kasha. To the west, a wind from the west is always bad. If there's a northern wind, then it's good for crops that have already grown a third. But it's bad for olive trees that are blossoming at the time. And the southern wind is bad for the crops that have already grown a third. And it's good for the blossoming olive trees. So this is a different, saying that it's always, bad. There are contradictory indications between this price and the last price.
It's they're not really significant. They're just regarding north and south.
Yeah.
They're minor. It seems to be. I mean, not.
Yeah, but it is somewhat contradictory. But before we resolve the contradiction, one of these people said, the indication or the mnemonic to remember it is that the shulchan, the table in the Mishkan, was in the north, and the menorah was in the south. Hi Merabe Dide, but hi Merabe Dide. So the shulchan, oh yeah, so the shulchan was on the shulchan bread made of wheat, and what's on the menorah? Fuel made of olives, right? So it tells us that. So the the shulchan being in the north means that the north wind is good for the bread, meaning good for the wheat, and the menorah in the south, meaning the south wind is good for the olives. Anyway, Lokasha, how do we resolve the contradiction? Allah v'Allahu, different climate in Eretz Yisrael and in Bava, right? So the north wind in Eretz Yisrael means something different than the north wind in Bavel. That's easy enough. Tanya, going a little further into this weather signs, Abashal Omer, Yom Tov Shalateres Bar, if there is a clear day on Shavuos, Simon Yafa L'chol Shana Kula, it's a good sign for the whole year. Amar Vid, Hayom Akama Derei Shata, the first day of Rosh Hashanah, Ichamim Kula Shata Chamima, if it's hot, the whole year will be hot. Ikarir Kula Shata Krira, if it's cold, then the whole year will be cold. Well, my nafkamina. So, like, what does that? How does that help us, right? Like, if it'll be cold, it'll be cold. There's nothing you can do about it. What is the practical implications of knowing this? Whereas with tefillah, social Kohen Gadol. So when the Kohen Gadol came out of the Kodesh HaKodashim on Yom Kippur, he said a short tefillah. This is in the Musaf of Yom Kippur that we recite this tefillah. And one of the clauses in the tefillah is, is it going to be? He would pray like if it looks like it's going to be a hot year, let it not be too hot. Looks like it's going to be a cold year, he would pray, let it not be too cold. Okay, so there's a practical difference. Rava Amar Nachman, going back to Matna Shliv Meira, Rava said, Matna Shliv Meira midrabanan bialmahi. It's not a Torah thing, it's a midrabanan, a rabbinic rule. Shema titarif datal alav. And the reason is that we don't want to put stress on the sick person. We might hasten his death. Or reduce his whatever slim chance of recovery he has. So we kind of, if he knows that his instructions will be carried out, he'll be a more settled mind. Mir Rav Nachman Hachi, did Rav Nachman really say that? Rav Nachman, even though Shmuel says that a person who sells an IOU, so Ken owes me money, right? Ken owes me $100, and I sell that debt to Stan. Okay, so Stan's now holding the debt, but he benefits from when it gets paid back. It gets paid back to Stan. But if the loan was made to me, I can forgive the loan. So machol. So that if I do that, if I forgive the debt is forgiven. And stands out of luck. He can't collect. Bafilu Yorish Machal. And even the heir can forgive the debt. So if I pass away, then my son can forgive that debt. In other words, even though he doesn't inherit the monetary benefit of the debt, the payment would still go to Stan, but the existence of the debt, the hischayvus, the owing of the debt is still connected to me and passes on to my heirs. So my heirs can cancel the debt and stands out of luck. But even though he said that, Shmuel agrees, admits, She'im the son of Umatna Shliv Meira, that if you give away the debt, if I gave it to Stan as a deathbed bequest, then it completely transfers to Stan, and I don't have the right anymore to undo the loan. Now, Yamras Bishlama D'Oraisa, if you say that a deathbed gift is a Torah rule, Mishum Hachein Chalimcha. So that would make sense that the heir. I'm sorry. It's the heir we're talking about. That if I I gave it away as a man rather than my heir doesn't have rights to it anymore. So if it's a doraisa, fine. Eliyamra derabanan but if it's rabbinic, why can't the heir give away forgive the debt? The whole transfer of the contract to Stan was only rabbinic, and the rights of the Yoresh, the rights of the heir are certainly Doraisa. So why is that? So Gemara says Anna Shel Torah. Rav Nachman holds that it's actually rabbinic. The Matnas Shchid Meira Vasua Kishel Torah. It sure it's rabbinic, but they gave it the force of being a Torah of Torah laws. In other words, the rabbis can do that. They can say it even overrides. It even it works the same way as a Torah law would work. Amar Rav Nachman, Rava said,
What's the nafkamina? What's the point of even saying it's a rabbinic law? I mean, if it's like, and if it's an asmachne, but like the Torah, like the right, then what's the
what's the difference whether it's rabbinic or biblical? Interesting question. I didn't think about that. That's a good question. Might just be theoretical. I don't know. I haven't thought about it. I mean, it's interesting to know if, what's the source of this law. Um, so it seems clear. I mean, there were two sources that based it in Torah, in verses from the Torah. They weren't very convincing. And the fact that the Gemara even entertains the idea that the source is in Navi would indicate that they really know it's D'Rabbanan. But yeah, it's a good question. Like, what's the difference? It works either way, so it might just be a theoretical question. Amar Rav Nachman. Rav said the name of Nachman. Shriv Rashi Amar Yadur Ploni b'Vayzeh. Somebody who gives away the right to live in the house. Okay, as a Shriv Meira. Yochel Ploni Peros Dekelzeh, or he gives away the right to produce from a tree. Lo Klum. That is not something that Shriv Meira can give away. Doesn't work. Until he says, I'm giving, the interest in this house of being able to live in it, then it's like a piece of the actual ownership of the house. An ownership to the extent that you can live in it, but not that you can sell it, let's say, then that is a valid matnas shlimera. Or it's nudekel luzeploni v'yochal perosov, or give this palm tree to so and so to the extent that he can consume the fruit, but not that he has full ownership. That works. So
Who owns it then?
pardon me,
Who owns it then?
the guy or his heirs.
But let's say he doesn't have heirs.
Oh, so that's, I mean, there's always an heir. If there isn't an heir, like the Torah tells us about a ger who has no halachic heirs, then the Kohanim get it. Somebody always gets it. L'meimer the summer of Nachman. Does this mean that Rav Nachman holds milsa de Isa Bavari Isa b'shliv mera? The Leisa Babari Leisa b'shliv mera. Is Rav Nachman saying that you can only give away what a healthy person could give away, right? Because that's the same rule as something else. Like you can't give away fruit that hasn't grown yet because it's davar shelo ba'olam. You can't give away the rights to live in a house because it's not tangible. Nothing you can, um, there's nothing tangible there. So are we saying that the same rules apply to Amad Shliver? But I'll challenge that. Rabbi himself said in the name of Nachman. Shliv me Rashi Amar, deathbed bequest to new halvasi leplani. Give my loan, in other words, the money that's owed to me to whoever. Halvaso leplani, then that works. The afagav delese bibari, even though that's not the case with a healthy person. So here's a case where Rav Nachman thinks that a shliv meira can actually give things away that are not that a healthy person cannot give away. So Rav Papa says, Ho v'yoresh yarsha. The reason that you can transfer the loan in the second case is because it's something that an heir would get. So even though it's not even though it is a non-tangible thing or a darash lo something that doesn't exist yet, it's something that is inherent. Everybody knows that uh, if the estate is owed money, it's still owed money. The fact that the guy has died. So since it is tangible enough that it can be passed on as an inheritance, it's tangible enough that it can be given away by a shlibmer. Ravacha B'rei de Ravika, Ravacha has another answer. Halva Isa B'vari. There is a case where a healthy person can give away a loan. Could Rav Huna Marav, as Rav Huna said, Yom Rav Huna Marav, not only be Yachat Neil Plani, if I have, if you owe me $100 and I instruct you, give the $100 to somebody else, B'mamash Lashtan, if all three parties are present, then Kana, then that works, right? So there is a way where you can transfer this intangible thing, even as a healthy person, and so therefore, that's a model for how it could, that's a way that you can understand that it works for a shliv meira as well.
Well, we said above that one can transfer the loan, right? Only the question was whether he can cancel it and whether his heir can cancel it. So right? Weren't we talking about a loan? He can. So how is this different from what we learned a few minutes ago?
Um, I'm not say ask again.
Well, we learned above a few minutes ago that one can transfer an IOU. The question we had there was whether his heir can cancel that. But so how is this discussion here, Shkivira versus Abari, but transferring a loan? What else are we learning from this? What's the chiddush here?
Um, let's see. So how is this different than Rav Papa's answer? What you're asking?
Right. Then.
So actually, it's not different. It's just two examples of how a healthy person can transfer this loan. One is through Yerusha, right? Eventually, when he dies, it will be transferred to his heirs, and the other way is through this three-way transaction. So they're not arguing with each other. They're just offering different examples of how a loan can be transferred by a healthy person. And therefore, we have a model or a precedent for how it can be transferred by a shliv meira. So in other words, it's not the case. Here are two possible ways that a loan can be transferred by a healthy person. Therefore, there's precedent for a shliv meira to transfer a loan.
No, I'm talking about the discussion even further back where we talked about the gift and the question was whether the loan can be canceled. Can he be mochel on the loan?
Right.
That seemed to be a proof enough that the loan can be transferred, right?
Maybe.
That's
Perhaps so, but either
the
way, it
question.
can
The
happen.
question was there. You get transfer a chov, right? A
Mhm,
mocher at the chov, right? So
mhm.
then, and the yorish at the chov. So then, the question there was, can he be mochel or not? So it seems to me we've already established that he can transfer a chov to, or he can mocher the chov.
Yeah,
So what are we learning here? That is any what's the chiddush here that a shkiv meira can transfer a chov or can transfer a loan? Or was that referring to a chov and this is referring to a lava? Maybe that's the difference.
perhaps. Not sure. Um,
Maybe that's the difference.
I
Chov
think about
versus a halva.
uh Okay. Anyway, we will stop here for today. Have a good day, everybody.
Okay.
Thank you, Bill.